Tell us about the experience that you had after giving a presentation to Google CEO and founders about the performance of AdSense.
Shortly after I joined Google, I was working for Sheryl Sandberg, and she said, you've got to go and give a presentation to Google's founders, Larry and Sergey, and to Google's CEO, Eric Schmidt. And when I walked into the room to give the presentation, there is Larry in this blue spandex sort of, I don't know what it was made out of, but this sort of blue unitard, sort of like Mork and Mindy, you know. And he's on a treadmill in the corner of the room. And Eric is so focused on his email, it's like his brain is plugged into his computer. And I think, how am I going to get these people's attention? Like any normal person, I felt a little nervous. And I was lucky, though, because the business was on fire. And when I said how many new customers, I was at that time leading AdSense online sales and operations. When I said how many new customers we had added, to the extent you can come to a screeching halt on a treadmill, Sergey came to a screeching halt, and Eric pulls his head up out of his computer, and he says, what do you need? What resources do you need to keep this going? Do you need more engineers? Do you need marketing dollars? So, you know, I felt like the meeting had gone pretty well. In fact, I felt like a genius, if I'm honest. And so as I'm leaving the meeting, I'm expecting kind of a high five from my boss, Sheryl Sandberg. And instead she says to me, why don't you walk back to my office with me? And I think, oh boy, now I'm going to hear about something I did wrong. I don't know what it is. And Sheryl starts by telling me the things that went well in the meeting, and not in a feedback sandwich kind of way, but I actually learned something. Some stuff I didn't know was working. But of course, that wasn't what I wanted to hear. What I wanted to hear was what I had done wrong. And so eventually Sheryl says to me as we're walking, she says, you said a lot in there. Were you aware of it? And I kind of breathe a huge sigh of relief, thinking if that's all I did wrong, it's no big deal. And I kind of say, yeah, I know, it's a verbal tic, no big deal, really. And then she said, I know a really good speech coach, and Google would pay for it. Do you want an introduction? And I sort of said, no, didn't you hear about all those new customers? I'm busy. And I don't need a speech coach. And Sheryl stops. She looks at me directly in the eye, and she said, I can see when you do that thing with your hand that I'm going to have to be a lot more direct with you. When you say every third word, it makes you sound stupid. Now she's got my full attention. Now some people would say that it was mean of Sheryl to say I sounded stupid, but it was actually the kindest thing she could have done for me at that moment in my career. And if she was talking to somebody else, she wouldn't have had to go that far out on the challenge directly axis, right? On the challenge directly dimension of radical candor. Because I'm kind of bullheaded. I don't always listen that well. So, and she knew, she could tell from my body language that she was going to have to say it much more clearly in order to get through to me. And if she hadn't said it to me just that clearly, then I wouldn't have gone to see the speech coach. And when I did go see the speech coach, I realized she wasn't exaggerating. I really did say every third word. And the weird thing about this was that I had been giving presentations for 15 years. I had raised $35 million for a startup I had done, giving presentations. I thought I was pretty good at it. In all those 15 years, nobody had ever held up a mirror and told me I had this problem. And that was amazing. It was like I had been walking around for my entire career with a giant hunk of spinach between my teeth, and nobody had done me the courtesy of telling me. And it really made me think, why is this so rare? Why is it so rare that someone would just tell me when I'm screwing up? And I realized if you think about each dimension in turn, if you think about care personally and you think about challenge directly, I think the thing that makes it rare for so many people to care personally is not because they're bad people. Nobody starts their career out thinking, I don't care about people, so I'm going to be a great leader, right? What happens is around the time we're 18, 19, 20 years old, we get our first job. We're at that moment in our lives when our personas are beginning to solidify, but our egos are still very fragile. And right at that crucial moment, we're told, be professional. And for an awful lot of people, that sort of means leave your emotions, leave who you really are, leave your humanity at home, leave the best part of yourself at home and come to work as half a person or something, right? And that's terrible. So one of the things I learned from Sheryl at Google is you've got to be more than just professional. That's very different than being unprofessional. You've got to bring your whole self to work. And so that's the sort of care personally dimension. On the challenge directly dimension, it begins when we're even younger. It begins when we're 18 months old. As soon as we learn to speak, most of us have parents who tell us some version of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Now that you're at work and you're collaborating with others, or if you're a leader especially, it's your job to say it. This means you have to undo training that's been beaten into your head since you were 18 months old. It's hard. It's really hard.